Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nintendo Expansion Pass here on Boss Rush Network. I'm your host, the Light Excited ADV. Joining me, of course, is Bossman himself, Mr. Corey Dirrig.
Hello, I'm here, ready to podcast.
Yes, Corey, do you want to do your Patreon shout-outs first before we get into this? This topic.
Just
that we
right
get into.
to it. Huh? You're not even gonna let me ease into the show and get these open and talk about them. Damn.
Not just yet, because we have an explosive topic after something that we did for a standard definition, and we'll give a little bit preface about that. But yeah, I'm excited for this topic.
I know, I'm excited too. I wish it wasn't so late, but it's fine. We'll muscle through it, as they say.
Yes.
Anyways, if you head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/BossRushNetwork, for just $1, you get this show and Boss Rush podcast 1 week early, and Standard Definition and After Dark 2 weeks early. But if you subscribe at the $5 tier, you become a Patreon producer. What does that mean? It means you get your name shouted out on this here program, as well as our other podcasts. So, without further ado, our Patreon producers for this episode of Power Block Expansion Pass are Quentin Jackson, Rebecca Jewell, Adriel Munger, and my wife, Sana Dirrig. So, yeah, I want to thank all of our patrons, all of our Patreon producers. I also want to thank all of our free listeners who continue to listen to Expansion Pass on the Nintendo Power Block podcast free feed a week later than our patrons. Remember, if you like this episode or Nintendo Power Block, please leave us a 5-star rating or review. Really help us out. Really appreciate it. Remember, all of our content remains free. We just give you a few extra perks over on Patreon.
Yes.
Back to you, Ed.
So, me and Corey have been talking about Sega.
Sega.
Yes. For the
Sega.
past few weeks. And we were talking about the Sega Genesis in particular. And just going through all the games that Sega has produced, have, released on other consoles, kind of their rise and fall in the console market. And Corey, you mentioned a certain question, I should say. If Sega came back with another console, what games would be on their system?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting thing that we kind of got into on a recent Standard Definition, which isn't going live for a couple more weeks. But, yeah, we were talking about Sega. I don't even remember how it came up. I think we were just talking about... we were talking about Sega Genesis and, all the cool...
Yes.
I was like, man, that episode, I'm not going to lie, I kind of just blacked out halfway through that episode because I was so tired. Similar to this one, but it's fine because energy drinks exist and I'm here. So yeah, and we kind of got talking, and as we were talking, we were writing down all these games for Sega Genesis and how kind of impactful they were, at least to us. It just kind of dawned on me that Sega has so many IP, especially now with the when Sammy kind of took over a little bit, and then they purchased Atlas, and they have the studio that made Halo Wars 2. I always forget what they're called. They're the RTS studio. And, they have a lot of IP. They have a lot of great studios that are doing a lot of different and unique things. And
yeah,
I thought this would be a cool expansion pass topic of what if Sega created a console today, what would their first party lineup look like? And what franchises would we see come back, and what would they look like on, in a 3D space, or an updated space, or just in a modern kind of context. I mean, we get Sonic all the time, right? Like Sonic Frontiers is on the horizon.
Yeah.
Obviously that the Atlas acquisition with Persona and Shin Megami Tensei and Soul Hackers, and you know what I mean? Like they have this crazy RPG space now, and then the rise of Yakuza and Judgment, and it's just they have so many great things that it's hard to like. Man, Sega is kind of like they're back in an awesome and unique way, and you just don't think about them the way you think about Ubisoft and Activision and EA and Square Enix and stuff. But you look at Sega and they're like, oh my gosh, they have so much, and they're kind of dominating in a lot of different niche spaces, which is making them very successful. So
Right. And Japan, they still have presence in the arcade. In a sense, they have they still are making arcade games, and this is outside of pachinko games and stuff like that. So they're still kind of big in the gaming space. Before they went third party, Dreamcast was on its last leg, and then once they started putting out games for Nintendo, it kind of seems like they were getting back on track of being back in the black. Because how do all of those years after you become third party, financially seems to be stable enough for for them to buy Atlas was a really big shock. You wouldn't expect no one to buy Atlas.
Well, they took a chance, right? I mean, like Persona 3 became. And Persona 3 and 4 on PS2 were extremely big not extremely big, but they were extremely well loved, and you could see how Persona started becoming kind of, I would say, like this kind of generation's Final Fantasy of like these.
Yeah.
It's starting to get super popular. People like them. And then Persona 4 Golden was like the biggest game on Vita, which is hilarious that some sort of niche JRPG is the biggest game on your console, and
right.
With a console that has an Uncharted and Gravity Rush and Killzone and Unit 13, that an updated version of a PS2 RPG is your biggest game was certainly telling. And so I think Sega saw potential and they took a risk, because Sega wasn't really doing great financially. And they took a risk and they invested, and I think they made the right moves.
It I was thinking about their purchase of Atlas, and at that time, Atlas really wasn't big. They were still like kind of like almost a small company because they were only doing stuff for Sony and doing some games, not a little bit they were doing some games for Nintendo because Trauma Center was one of the Atlas games. But their space was also in the handheld market with the DS and 3DS in a sense. And so they kind of, Atlas, you would think that as niche as they were still being stable with the games that they were releasing and the money they was getting. So when I think Platinum Party played a part in this, in a sense, because even though Sega was publishing their games, it kind of felt like right after, I believe, because I think they brought Atlas after Bayonetta 2, or a couple of years after that, in a sense. So it kind of felt like Sega, was somehow still being financial to make games and everything. But for them to go and get Atlas, I think Atlas, and I agree with you, it was a really great decision because I think this allowed Atlas to get more games out everywhere.
Well, I mean, I think it turned Atlas from a niche RPG studio to I mean, you look at the difference between, I know Persona 4 was a PS2 game, and Persona 4 Golden was a Vita game, right? I'm not trying to compare them in that sense, but like, you can tell the budget on Persona 5 was way bigger than something on Persona 4, right? Like, you could just tell. Or you look at Shin Megami Tensei 5 on the Switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go back and look at the couple releases that they had on the 3DS, and you're like, man, this is a big jump, you know?
Yeah.
And so Sega purchased Atlas on November 1st of 2013 is when the sale finalized, which was, just to kind of give everybody a sense of where things were at that point. I think the Wii U had just come out a couple months beforehand. The 360 and the PS3 were on their last years, so yeah, Sega made a splash by buying them, and they've been succeeding with them. So
Yes. So now with this hypothetical console, nothing
Dreamcast 2.
real, I think. Dreamcast 2. I kind of, this is the first thing that came to my mind was, does Mario versus Sonic in the Olympics also be on the new console on
that
Dreamcast?
out of everything you could possibly think of, that was the first thing that popped into your mind?
Well, because the thing about it is that
game wouldn't exist. No, that game just wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist.
Well, I'm talking about after, that market came back, because they're, Sega and Nintendo over the years have a great relationship.
Yeah, because Sega wasn't making consoles anymore.
Well, yes.
If the Dreamcast was even, I would say, double as successful as it was, right, to compete with the GameCube and the Xbox in terms of sales, or
Mm-hmm.
If Sega went on to make another box that was comparable to the 360 or whatever, like, Sega games would not be on other consoles. We would still be talking about, hey, you would have Xbox versus PlayStation, and then you have Nintendo versus Sega. I think there would be a two-way, like a two-fight thing, right? Because, like, obviously Xbox and PlayStation are trying to be the biggest consoles on the planet, the most powerful, the whatever. And then I actually think Sega would have gone the route the way that Nintendo went, in a sense of, like, we're not going to be the behemoth box. I mean, maybe they could have been, right? I mean,
Right.
Maybe they would have. Maybe they would have beaten out Xbox and we wouldn't have an Xbox, right? Like, maybe Sega would have done something different there. But I think Sega, in a lot of ways, we talked about this a little bit with the on the Genesis episode, of, like, how ahead of their time they were in different stages of their console cycles, right? With Genesis, they had the 32X, they had the Sega CD, which were, like, they weren't great add-ons, but they were interesting, and they were showing us where we were going in the future of games, right? Because then you have the garbage consoles like the Atari Jaguar or the 3DO, and trying to do these disc-based consoles before the PlayStation, and they were just not great, right? They were not good consoles. But the Sega CD was at least something interesting, and we got Sonic CD, which a lot of people argue is one of the best Sonic games ever made. I kind of disagree with that, but that's a conversation for a separate time. But they were doing these unique things, and then we were talking about Sega TV, which was essentially Game Pass for Genesis.
Yes.
For Genesis, they were doing that in the 90s, right?
Yes.
And then don't get me wrong, I love Game Pass. It's a great idea. But, like, this wasn't Xbox's idea. This was Sega's idea in the 90s. And they just couldn't, figure out how to make it work, because I think they were too quick to the idea.
Yes.
And then you look at the Saturn, and, I think the surprise release today of a console would be it would be the biggest thing in gaming, right? Like, oh, surprise, Switch released a fourth model of 4K. Get it right now. Pre-order it right now, right? That'd be the craziest thing in a quote-unquote great idea in the internet age. But at the time, right, when they announced it, they stealth released it, and it just didn't do well. and the expansion memory thing in the back kind of allowed you to do different things. And then you get to the Dreamcast and you had online gaming on consoles for the first time. Phantasy Star is still huge, right? They just released that big patch for Phantasy Star Online 2, the new Genesis pack, which is free to play on Xbox right now. Sega would be a very interesting console to compete with today with this lineup of stuff, right? I truly believe Sega could compete. And they might be in last place, but they could compete, because Persona wouldn't be on PlayStation, It wouldn't be on, obviously it's coming to Xbox now, but it wouldn't be on PlayStation.
Yeah.
It would be on the Sega console. Yakuza wouldn't be on PlayStation. It would be on the Sega console. Phantasy Star wouldn't be on Xbox. It would be on this new Sega console. Sonic would still be kind of like in there. They would have their Mario Kart competitor. They have their online game. They have their RPGs. They have their, Alex could easily be a Mario competitor. Altered Beast, or I would say actually Golden Axe, could actually be a pretty interesting Zelda competitor in a 3D space, or even Ever Oasis. You could bring that back, and that could be an interesting action RPG.
The reason I brought the Mario versus Sonic in the Olympics because that game was super successful. Both games were super
because
successful.
It has Mario and Sonic in it. Doesn't mean it's good.
Oh well, yeah, but
the phone game did not have Nintendo characters in it. If you remember, the ports that were not on Nintendo consoles did not have Nintendo characters in it.
Was it just Sonic at the Olympics?
It was just Sonic at the Olympic Games, and it was just the Sonic characters. It was the same exact game, and they just pulled all the Mario characters out.
Well, I think now with Nintendo kind of want to lease some of their characters or kind of work a deal out. That's why I was wondering with Dreamcast 2, would they do like a port? Or not even do a port. I would say the next Olympic whenever it comes out.
I'm going to slap you that I stayed up late to have this conversation, and this is the game you want to talk about.
No, because it's interesting. It's an interesting thing.
No, it's not, because Mario would not exist on Sega.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I'm asking because of the way that they have that contract set up. Because if Sega's gonna go, I don't know if Sega's still gonna do third-party games and first-party.
No, they would not. I do not think they would. Because what's the point of having your own console then? You would just... that's why they got out of the console hardware business in the first place. Mm-hmm. Because the R&D was too expensive, the consoles were too expensive, and not enough people were buying them. Right? And that's why you go third party. I don't know. I think Sega has a lot of interesting IP. I have the list pulled up right. Like,
I definitely like Sonic game would be there. I really feel like Virtual Fighter would be coming back to the system.
They have at least one franchise that can compete with everything on the market right now, right? Like they have, like you said, Virtual Fighter that could totally compete with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, right? They have House of the Dead, which, and it doesn't have to be a rail shooter. They could totally do a Resident Evil style haunted house game, right? They could totally do that. Alex Kidd could be your Mario, right? Sonic could be its own thing. I just think they have something everywhere that can compete with at least something on another console.
And I
Sega
GT
like, could be your racing game.
Well, yeah, that'd be the racing game to go against Forza Motorsport, to compete with Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo 5. I think Sega GT would do it.
Yeah, and like Sega GT was good when it came to Xbox, right? Like Sega GT 2002 was one of the first games I owned on the original Xbox. Shenmue and Yakuza and Judgment could be your kind of, whatever those games are.
See, Shenmue, I think Sega would not touch again.
I don't think Shenmue would come out either, but at the same time, I think they just didn't evolve Shenmue because Sega was in a rough place. You know what I mean? Like that game was kind of Not that it was a great game, but it did a lot of interesting things that games were not doing back then.
Yes, but it hurt them financially,
I
like
agree.
bad.
I agree. And a lot of people actually point to Yakuza as like the natural evolution of Shenmue,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so at least 0 through 6. I know 7 is kind of like a JRPG style
Yeah.
game. But yeah, I mean, uh, you have Creative Assembly to do RTS, which would totally compete with Halo Wars or, you know, whatever Blizzard's putting out. I guess StarCraft, I guess, is what you would put out there.
Yeah.
Streets of Rage could be an awesome. You could do a 2D or a 3D game with Streets of Rage.
Which brings up the question: .mu does Sega snatch them up?
I mean, you totally could. I think you could do a bunch of interesting things with classic games versus new versions of these games.
Right.
And like we talked a little bit about Shinobi, right, being their Ninja Gaiden or their I guess it would be closer to Neo than Dark Souls, right? But like they could totally have a hard action RPG that in Shinobi. So I don't know. I think a Sega console in 2022 would be way more interesting than in 2012.
Oh yeah, I agree. I truly agree.
Yeah.
I think for me it's just like working the games, like finishing the contracts and finishing the games that's been on other platforms to bring to this new platform.
Yeah.
It's my thing.
Yeah.
And I that's why I wonder, like, what Sega. I'm leaving the Mario and Sonic thing alone because I think we talked that today. I think Sega definitely like Jet Set Radio.
Yeah.
You mentioned when we were talking about the Genesis, you were talking about a Togi that was on 360 or an Xbox, so that could come over. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a game called Blood with Tail, which is based off of manga in Japan that Sega did for PlayStation 2, where you got to defeat like I think 48 demons because they stole your parts of your body, and so you got prosthetic legs to walk around with, but your arms are made out of blades to attack, and every time you defeat a demon, you get a body part back. So they got games based off of manga and stuff that could probably come to the console also. Dreamcast 2. Just gonna call it that. Dreamcast 2. And definitely when it comes to ports and stuff, you got like arcade games that they could port over. They got, probably games that's still from the Dreamcast that never got released that may still be shelved. They could rework those games and bring them out.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the like they literally have something that could match up to everything that Nintendo's doing, right? Like I think Valkyria Chronicles is more popular than ever with the release of 4, right? That's totally that's their Fire Emblem, I think it's crazy looking at this list at how diverse Sonic or Sega is, like how diverse. Trauma Center, remember the Wii surgery games?
Yeah, I mentioned it.
Yeah. Sega owns that stuff, and that's like an interesting different thing for them. Super Monkey Ball, right? Like Super Monkey Ball is beloved by a lot of people.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Man. So I guess like I know we've talked a lot vaguely about all these franchises. Like what would the console actually look like? I guess we could start there. I mean, do you think they would? I mean, they tried the Nintendo thing, right, with the Nomad, which is also the Switch idea back in the 90s. Like, do you think they would do something like that again to try to compete in a handheld space?
I think they would still go CD based in a sense. I don't think they're going to go back to doing cartridges. I think Genesis was the last thing for the cartridge. If we're thinking about like. And I think they will, whatever they could do to not get their games pirated, like they did on the Dreamcast.
I mean, that's what killed them.
Yes.
Because,
Um,
like, I mean, they were still making consoles at a loss, and they were going to make the sales up on the software, right? And if you can pirate their software for free, you're not making any money. That's what killed them. They sold almost 10 million units in a year and a half. That's a ton of units.
yeah.
But like, if you're losing, if you're losing money on that many units, right, and you aren't selling software because everybody's just renting it from Blockbuster to rip them onto another disc.
Hmm.
Man, what a shame.
I,
What
I
an
think
oversight, by the way.
I think with the way that consoles are designed now, um, I really think they would. I think they would try to avoid the bulkiness of a PS2, a PS5, and I don't think they're. I don't think they want to have any kind of design like the Series X. So I think they kind of want to make it where it's easier to look at,
Hmm.
um, but not so easier to look at, while also, I should say, also having a way to place all their chips and stuff. So
Yeah.
I really think that they may try something like a Switch, but I think they're gonna make it a little. I don't think it's gonna be handheld or something. I think they're gonna be like, how do we make a rectangle design?
I think it would look like I think it would be look like a little bit of a beefier Series S, but like they would do some kind of like rounded design. I'm just thinking of the way the Saturn looks in particular, right? Like it's just
Mhm.
a black box, but they had some design to it, right? Like the rounded kind of uh where you put the disc in, the top of it was a little bit raised, like the edges were rounded. You know what I mean? Like I kind of imagine a sleeker version of the Saturn, to be honest with you.
Well, I, I think it won't have like a pop up top. I think it'll just be a disc that can slide in.
Oh
I
yeah,
actually,
yeah. I mean,
I
I
actually,
think I think anybody that does like a pop up lid disc thing anymore is just, what are you doing? It's got to be a disc. It's got to at least be a disc tray. You know,
yes,
if not,
I,
if the disc just sucks it in.
I really could see them doing something like the Wii, that kind of design.
The Wii,
Um, yeah,
yeah, but I
it,
th- I think yeah.
design wise.
Go on.
I think design wise, because I think the Wii is kind of very artistic with that stand, the way that they have it. It's just that sleekness of
Hmm.
the diag stuff, and maybe have the blue, like the blue. I mean, if they want to have the blue represent Sega, they can, or they could change that, whatever.
I mean,
I
remember the
actually,
Wii? The disc tray though lit up blue when you had a disc in.
yes,
So I mean, Sega could totally do something like that.
yes, because and I believe they'll still do, like, they'll just use Blu-ray. I'm assuming,
Hmm.
like, you know,
Yeah, whatever PlayStation and Xbox are using, and be a variation of that, right?
yeah. I would actually, I think, because now do I'm sorry, everybody, because I'm thinking now with the way that Dreamcast had like the VMU,
Hmm.
would it be good for them to have a SSD, or have like a micro SD card, or even an SD card in general, to save games and stuff?
I mean, I think it would be. I don't know. I think the VMU was a nice idea, but also those things cost a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think, like, with the way that cloud saves work and everything, like I bet it would work. Honestly, I bet if Sega was to do a handheld again with a console, it would work more like the way that the Steam Deck works, actually.
Okay.
Where, like, yeah, you can buy your games on this console or whatever, but then you can buy this handheld if you want to play your games on the go. You know,
Yes.
I I think that's a dumb idea, but I think they want their console to be more powerful than a Switch. I think they would want to be more in line with Xbox, the way Xbox is. because I think they're going to want to do online functionality with,
Oh yeah,
especially with like a virtual fighter, would be huge. Obviously, Sega GT would be huge. Fantasy Star would be huge. Like they have a massive online catalog already, hypothetically. I think they would want some sort of grand online service similar to Xbox Live, and they would have to do something like that. Daytona USA also, like they have them. Xbox has a lot, or Sega would have a lot of online things, really.
yeah, yes. Because I wonder, do they now go to the sports arena, or area,
Yeah.
or genre, whatever you want to call it?
Well, you think?
And oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
just to cut you off real quick. Like, if you're talking about sports, like they would have never gotten rid of 2K, right?
Yeah,
Because like the 2K sports games were Sega published and exclusive, and then I think that was part of probably the fire sale where 2K kind of Take Two kind of picked it up, right? And then the
yeah,
2K label became a brand that people recognized.
yeah. So, yeah, because I wonder, do they now go to? Well, they probably wouldn't go to MLB. Uh,
No, my
but I
first
haven't
my
seen it.
first thought is NBA 2K, right? I mean, that's the biggest basketball. The biggest sports game on the planet besides
Yeah.
FIFA, right? So that
So
would
you
be
think
my
they would
first
go?
thought.
You think they would go to the? Because I know they'll have to change the name. They can't use the NBA 2K name anymore.
Why not?
You know,
Why not?
because they don't own Visual Concept no more.
I mean, I'm saying though they wouldn't have gotten rid of the 2K, and
Oh yeah.
they would still own it all. Like
See
they
on
wouldn't.
it, yeah.
And even if they couldn't use 2K, they could still get the NBA license and make their own basketball game.
But that's what I'm saying, that they were, you know, going
Yeah.
back into sports.
Yeah.
Who would they like? Who MLB they would have talked to, because MLB the show had already got that. I think if they did like NFL and NBA, definitely that's going to give
Yeah.
Madden a run for his money. But then you think about it, like, man, NHL they can snag them. I have a feeling that th- if they get people who left Visual Concepts, if they went back to Sega so they could make those games and everything like they used to, but make it better because they now know the technology. I really think that well, of course, EA probably would be like, "Oh, okay, they did that. We need to beef up, or we need to really dig in." I think people will switch to whatever Sega sports games that they're releasing.
Yeah, but also like you gotta assume this thing's gonna have third party support too, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Madden and FIFA and the show and all these games would exist on this console. They wouldn't necessarily have to like do this, but I mean, again, they could because they were so good at it. In 99 and
Well,
2000, they were so good. Like NBA 2K was so good. NFL 2K was so good.
yeah. Well, it's but then who's the well? I feel like definitely Bandai Namco is gonna be on it. I think
Yeah.
Bandai Namco wants to be on everything as much as they can.
I mean, I think you would see a similar kind of trajectory that you see on PlayStation right now, right? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
the typical stuff. I just think they have a lot to offer first party wise as well. I'm still looking at this list finding surprises, right? Like remember the FPS on Wii Conduit, the Conduit?
Yeah,
Like that would be awesome. That would be an online first person shooter that they could do, right? That could be their Halo to an extent,
dude,
I
the
mean,
kind of and Condemned.
yeah,
Condemned was
Condemned.
that was big on 360,
Yeah, I forgot about Condemned.
and like, yeah,
Yeah, Condemned
you
could
know,
be like their kind of, well, I'm trying to think of their like other horror games that I'm not like great at. I guess Condemned could technically be their. I'm hesitant to say Resident Evil because I don't think I think it was more about
it's
jump scares and just being in creepy environment. I guess it could be like their Silent Hill. I guess you could say.
probably. I kind of feel like Cademus just stands on his own for some
Yeah.
reason.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, I guess now. Um, yeah, they have so much that uh, I mean, Etrian Odyssey. Remember that 3DS game?
Yeah.
That could be, and yeah, I'm just looking at all this stuff. Golden Axe could be. I think a really cool. They have franchises that could really work in really specific situations. Like Golden Axe could totally be a. I would almost equate it to something like Fable or Kingdoms of Amalur. Like a
Hmm.
3D kind of action RPG with a little bit of, charm, but also a little campy. You know,
Right.
I just remember that what game that came out in like 2008 or 9 or something. Yeah,
Hmm.
that game
I wonder
rough.
would they. I wonder would they do something like Odama?
Hmm.
They brought that series back,
Well,
like
that's
the
that's the
peripheral
thing
stuff.
too, is like totally have a catalog that Nintendo's Switch Online, they could totally have that too. You know,
Hmm.
they could totally have that in terms of like a virtual console or whatever theirs would be. They have all those classic games, and then they could make new versions of those classic games. Like we
Yeah.
just saw how great Streets of Rage 4 was, and we saw how great that was, and they could totally do that with Gunstar Heroes, right? They could totally do
Right.
that with Gunstar Heroes. Why not? Why wouldn't you do that with Gunstar Heroes?
Definitely. I mean, Treasure was putting a lot of their games out on Sega platforms. Definitely during the Genesis. So why not? I'm like, if Nintendo's not doing anything with Treasure, Sony and Microsoft not doing anything, give them some money, Sega, and have them put some games on that new hypothetical console.
Yeah,
Like you would have the hardcore action stuff right there. And I think that's going to be a draw to a lot, not just the retro crowd, but that's going to be like, oh, Sega's coming hot. And if just for 2 years, if they could keep a strong stream of games coming to their system, Nintendo's going to be. I think I finally feel like Nintendo will definitely have some competition. Not so much Microsoft or Sony, but Nintendo going to be like, okay, they're coming. Not for our heads, but they're really putting us. Uh, they're really giving us the go ahead to compete. So now we got to better our games so we can keep people on our platform. You know.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I just this console could totally be what Xbox wants to be. I'm just
Hmm.
thinking out loud, right? Like they could totally do like a. I mean, I'm assuming there would probably be one or two consoles in between this one and the Dreamcast. At least one, probably two. They could totally do like the backwards compatibility thing, right?
Yeah.
They could do the Game Pass thing because they've already tried it with Sega TV, which they could still call it Sega TV. They could do the virtual console thing that Nintendo's doing, and then they
Hmm.
could make all these new games. Like they could totally just, and then you could have a robust online system. You could have a robust friends system, a robust kind of. And what makes them unique is they could do the VMU system. Like I was thinking about that after I said that would cost them a lot of money, but you could totally do the cloud streaming thing, right? Or
Yeah.
like it would probably be an app on your phone at this point where
That's what I was just about to say.
you could link it to your Sega account or whatever, and oh well, I have the app. I could totally Sonic Adventure 75, like the Chow Garden. I could totally flip this app open and take care of some
Hmm.
chows, and they could totally turn it into like a mobile game experience too, where like, oh, I need more gems to do this with my with my chows. I guess I could go into this store and buy some.
Yeah.
Very like, yeah. So also like in something like Valkyria Chronicles or Persona or something, not that these features exist, but they could, like, in that app, oh, I see you've played this. Here's your cloud save. Do you want to like look at your armor the way that Bungie does with Destiny, right? Like, do you want to look at your armor? Do you want to look at your stats? Do you want to, you know, dress them up different ways? I don't know what you do in this app, but like, totally do something like that.
But and that would be cool because that cloud feature, even though it may not be the full game that's on your phone, it's the side stuff that you get to do that would carry over to your game. So, like you said, having that link, having that connection. And I like the idea where you said, hey, do you want to customize your character? Because that's the thing about people don't realize that you connect that to Sega's store where you could buy outfits. You know, full outfits for like, let's say $3. You know, and maybe that does play a part in the game, that your outfit may also carry like 50 or 500 gold coins or something. So when you start the game up, you get money added to your bank for you to buy materials or whatever. You know, like there's some rewards to what people play. Because I really feel like when was it Mitomo? What was the app thing that Nintendo had before they closed it? Was it Mitomo? And people were buying stuff, buying outfits and everything for that game before they shut it down. Sega could do something like that. Like I could picture my character in well, I was about to say Vagrant Story. In let's just say Phantasy Star Online. That I could do something to Phantasy Star Online and literally have this cool outfit that, let's say, Crystal Dynamics was putting something on. So now I got this futuristic Tomb Raider outfit for my character. You know, Sega could do that if they wanted to.
They totally could. And then like you could, even in something like a sequel to Valkyria Chronicles, right? Like you could, if you want to gain some experience on the road, but you can't exactly play the game, right? Like you could go on your phone and send some units out to do like quote unquote these solo missions that you can gather up, and you know, and yeah, you're risking them dying, but you could also risk them bringing great experience back for your party and level up and kind of, you know, do these other things. And I think that would also be cool.
Yeah.
Or like, also, you look at Jet Set Radio, you could go on your phone in this app and create your own tags, right? That would be super cool.
Oh, heck yeah. Tags, making your own musical playlist. Like, yeah, there's so much options for a Dreamcast 2 that they could do. And I think, to me, I think a reasonable price for them, if they ever did it, would be $400. I think $400 is now kind of acceptable for people to purchase and stuff. You know, and yeah, we're not into like the chips and all of that and the processing power. Whatever Sega wants to do with that, they can. But like you said, Corey, they have such a huge library to draw from. You know, and I feel like that's when they really have the exclusives.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. They could definitely utilize a lot of things, and I think it would actually be pretty successful, to be honest with you. I really think if they like were like, hey, guys, next generation, we're bringing out a new console. These are the features. All these other games, right? Like all the future of all these franchises are going to be exclusive on this console. Here's our robust online system. You can start early by signing up for your Sega account now. Pick your name, whatever. Here's kind of like, they could even do like an interactive kind of browser, like, you know, the way that Xbox and PlayStation are set up. Like you could do an interactive kind of web thing to get people excited for it. Maybe they do a pack-in game just to do it, right? Like even if it's just like a Genesis collection or a Dreamcast collection, right? Like just to get people in They could totally do like achievements or whatever. They could do all these types of things. And yeah, I also thought of a cool name just now. I don't know why, it just sounds cool, and it kind of goes with this theme of Genesis and Saturn and Dreamcast. But they could call it the Gemini, the Sega Gemini. Yeah, why? I have no idea why that sounds cool in my head, but that's what I came up with.
Sega Gemini.
What would the controllers look like?
Definitely 6-button.
You think they would have 6 face buttons?
I think the 4 face buttons and the 2 on the top. They may have triggers.
Well, they would. I think that you would have to at least have the same amount of buttons as the current controllers, right?
Yeah.
Just to entice third parties to be like, hey, look, our controller is similar. You wouldn't have to do a lot of control work.
I think they would lean more into not Sega's goodness. I think they would lean more into Xbox controllers and style, but they may even do something like the Steam controllers, but just make it better and less cumbersome.
I mean, they are known to have multiple controllers on their console, right? Like they had like Genesis, they had the 3-button and the 6-button. Dreamcast, or Saturn, they had that weird controller that came with Knights, right? That big round thing that kind of looked like a prototype Dreamcast controller. Now that I kind of think about it, the Dreamcast had fight sticks, right? Like they could totally do that. You know, here's your standard controller, looks like an Xbox or Switch controller. Here's our official Sega fight stick because we know you're going to want to play fighting games on this thing or arcade games. Here's your weird motion-y control things if you want. Here, you know, they could do all kinds of different things.
Right. And then when you was mentioning the fighting sticks, because Sega still has that kind of arcade architecture and design and everything, I could see Street Fighter 6 being ported to the Gemini, and that be the way to play the game. Because something about that system was seeing, maybe to the point where it does feel like you're playing an arcade game. So loadings might even be quicker than PlayStation 5 or Xbox. Not so much PC. I can't say anything about for that, but it feels like if you get that game, something about Sega's Gemini would be the definitive way to play it.
I think. I'm just thinking about the way that the PlayStation and the Xbox are built currently, and how Xbox kind of has this straight up SSD, right, where it's not trying to be too fancy. It's just a really fast SSD. Whereas PlayStation has that dynamic kind of attribute to it, right? Where some games can load faster than others based on like what they prioritize within the drive. And so I'm thinking that this console would just kind of be set up like that, especially if they're like going to use cloud stuff too. Like remember they signed that deal with Microsoft to use the Azure for their super games or whatever they're calling them, and I think that would be super interesting to see. So I'm liking this idea, man. More and more we talk about it, I kind of wish this was real.
Well, it's because I think Sega's, like we said, Sega's in a better place. They have made games for other consoles. They have seen what works and what doesn't work. Like the Alien franchise could literally come right back to the Sega platform.
Yeah.
Regardless of Colonial Marines, Alien is it Infestation? Or that one that was on PlayStation 3 and 4 and it came to Switch.
Isolation?
Isolation. That one, as creepy as it is now, if you want the Silent Hill comparison, that would be the one to do. That would be the one to. Aliens Isolation 2 on Gemini.
Yeah.
Because on how great that game is, it's probably one of the best Alien games that have came out. You know, and if that's going to be on, that could be an October release for Sega Gemini if they wanted to, and people would literally buy it. And I think that's when everybody was just like, well, people who've been attached to Sega putting their games out on other consoles, having that taken away from them, Sega Gemini will be the system for like true exclusives. Because these franchises that you want to continue to play, you have to go to Sega's ecosystem now to get them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like these franchises have such a cult following. Like, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but like, you know, Sonic is like, yeah, Sonic's huge and stuff, but like, I mean, Persona is a system seller, right?
Yes.
Yakuza is turning into a system seller. You know, like these franchises are huge for them. And then if you accompany these kind of major franchises with like, oh, okay, well, now that you're in the ecosystem, here's an Ever Oasis. Oh, you like Zelda? Here's Ever Oasis 2 or whatever, or just like a reboot. And it's like their version of Breath of the Wild, you know, and might not be as good, but like it's a big open world kind of action RPG where you can kind of go wherever you want and explore and do things. And they could totally do that, or they could do a kind of cartoony, I don't want to say Fortnite-y kind of game, but like they could do a co-op cartoony shooter for Gunstar Hero. I still think like the Fortnite-esque art style for Gunstar Heroes for like a squad-based third-person shooter, like cartoony shooter, would be super cool. It'd be like that step between like Splatoon and Gears.
Oh, wow.
They'd be like sitting in this middle ground.
But it probably will work in a sense. You know.
And then you could have your budget titles too. Like you could totally have like, I don't know, they own Choo Choo Rocket, right? Like, so they could totally have like a $20 download Choo Choo Rocket, or a $30 download Super Monkey Ball, or you know, and there's other franchises too that we never, like Bayonetta 3 would be exclusive to this, not Switch, right? Because they would have kept going there, you know. We could have got like Vanquish.
No, yes, Vanquish I could see. Yes, I think if Nintendo allows them to put the whole Bayonetta trilogy on, well, I should say,
Bayonetta the thing is like Sega would be publishing this game, and it like, who knows if Bayonetta would have even existed outside after the first one anyway without Nintendo, right? Like let's not go there, but hypothetically, if it did, like that like Sega wouldn't have let that go because it would have been exclusive to their ecosystem.
Yeah. And right there would be a re-release. I think it would sales would definitely show us if it deserves a second sequel.
Yeah,
you know,
I keep coming back to this idea that like Alex Kidd could totally be their Mario. You know, I totally could totally do that, and yeah, I really love their lineup. I think they have a lot of interesting things. I think they have a lot of different things, right? Like you go from Sonic to Crazy Taxi to Persona to Yakuza to you know, Company of Heroes to Conduit to Condemned, right? Like you just have...
Oh, wow, Company of Heroes. Ooh, that's the strategy game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though, is like there's so many things that there's so much variety, you know? And I don't know. I just feel like this is I can't... Like in 2022, I know they're not going to do this, but like if there was ever a time for Sega to make another console,
This would be the time.
this is the time to make another console.
Because you literally would have, I feel like with Sega, just even 10 games alone, I don't know what they would be. That would be the strongest launch lineup ever. You get one game, you get a couple of games from Sega, you get one game out of Atlas, maybe something for Sammy, like you go into it, but you do go to .mu, you do go to
Yeah, I mean, you just have a lineup ready of like a bunch of different things, right? Like a Sega GT, I think would be an easy launch game, right? Like you would have, I would say for a launch of a console, you would have a Sonic game ready to go.
I think Sonic Frontiers.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm just thinking out loud and hypothetical, right? You would have a Sonic game ready to go. You would have a Sega GT game ready to go. You would have something smaller like a Crazy Taxi or a Jet Set Radio, and then you get Atlas involved, either Atlas or the Yakuza team. You get a Yakuza team ready, right? A game ready, and then like 3 months from then you have like Virtua Fighter on the horizon, Streets of Rage on the horizon. I think Super Monkey Ball would also be a pretty decent launch game.
Yeah,
easy kind of home run there. Yeah, man. The more I look at these franchises and what I could imagine them being is, the more and more I want this Fate console.
And I know that it may seem, because Sega does have games for design exclusively for PC.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. I mean, with Creative Assembly and Relic and studios like that, like those are strategy PC games, right? Like those are simulation like those are totally PC.
Right. I think that they could still bring that to the console, and if they wouldn't do cross saves and cross progression and cross play, I feel like they would have that ability.
Well, we already know they know how, right? Creative Assembly did Halo Wars 2, right? That game is pretty darn good for an RTS console game.
Yeah.
You know, so we know they know how. Also, with even if you didn't want to play with a controller, you could still play with a mouse and keyboard. Like the modern consoles allow you to do that.
Yes.
Well, certain games too, I guess, but the consoles are set up for you to do that. Is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could just see the potential that would come out, and I really feel like, outside of reviews and stuff, I really feel like a lot of people will go and support this system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just based on what we talked about and like a potential, I would buy it day one.
Yeah. I think Sega just has to remember that, hey, make sure the quality of your games are up there, because if they are, people will buy them. People, just like Switch, where people be like, oh, I wonder if this game is going to come to Dreamcast. There's a possibility there is. You know, you don't have Square Enix, but because you have Atlas, you think about it. You got Shin Megami Tensei, you got Persona, you got Phantasy Star, you got Shining Force. Like, you got some of the biggest RPGs that have came from your company. Phantasy Star, Shining Force. Oh, there are Shining Force players who will be like, please bring the whole series over. Phantasy Star 5. If that had actually got made and announced and came out, people are going to buy it. They're going to treat it like it's, and it don't even have to be like Breath of the Wild. It could be a traditional RPG and be all fancy. People will go back and look at that catalog and be like, what is this Phantasy Star?
Yeah.
And bam. Now that people are going back, got the history, understand what it is, they're going to look forward to Phantasy Star 5.
Yeah. I mean, even you look at these like dumb kind of cult classics too, like Space Channel 5. You could totally do something dumb there.
Hang On.
What?
Hang On. That was their motorcycle game.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were telling me to hang on because you were thinking
Oh,
of something. I
sorry.
was like, what?
Sorry. Because I was thinking of Hang On and Outrun. Outrun could be their Forza Horizon, and Hang On could be their motorsport. Or what was the one?
Their motor. I mean, they could totally be like their motor, or like even if you did Sega GT, like say you did
Yeah,
Sega GT, you could totally do a motorcycle expansion called Sega GT Hang On.
yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot. Hang On probably would do better than Excite Bike.
I mean, yeah, but to be fair, I think Enduro Racer was arguably better than Excite Bike at the time anyway. I mean,
So,
Enduro Racer, you could totally do like an Enduro Racer.
right.
Not that I'm like begging for one, but it's an option.
And and just thinking about the Embracer group, like I feel like they would want to put their stuff on Sega's platform because I feel like they want to get as many platforms to support as they can. And if they could do that, if they could dude, just think of Marvel.
Marvel vs. Capcom. Like, you get all these fighting game franchises. Soul Calibur. I totally wasn't even thinking of all these games. Soul
But that's why I
Calibur.
said.
Like,
That's why I said Namco and Capcom would definitely, I think, join up because those games were successful on the Dreamcast.
I mean, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is like synonymous with the Dreamcast. I know everybody kind of like after the Dreamcast died, like everybody's like, "Oh, I got to get this game for PS2 or Xbox." But like Marvel vs. Capcom and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 were like synonymous, right?
Yeah.
Or Street Fighter versus X-Men, or you know what I mean? Like these games are just synonymous with Sega.
Dude, Code Veronica remake exclusively to Gemini.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it would be a time exclusive, but
I would say time exclusive for it.
But-
I mean, I feel like it would come out of everywhere, but to have like the original Code Veronica that was on Dreamcast and the sequel and the remake, dude.
you know what you get? You know what you get, Ed, for your survivor horror game? You know. You know what I'm about to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Blue Stinger.
Blue
Blue Stinger 2. Dude, I honestly, like, I think they could actually, like, if you wanted to do, like, a cheesy, campy survival horror game in the vein of Resident Evil, but, like, super colorful and almost like a Dead Rising-esque, not gameplay-wise, but, like, that kind of tone. Dude, Blue Stinger. Let's bring it back. Let's remake Blue Stinger, but keep the audio, keep the dialogue from the original Dreamcast game.
So, new graphics, garbage dialogue.
Yeah, that's what makes that game work so well. Also, please keep the fire axe as the best weapon in the game.
I think they would.
Which is like the second weapon you get, I think.
Oh, wow.
It's still the best weapon. Oh, man.
No. Even games from like D, or like like D, and some of those old like Saturn and Dreamcast horror games that they could bring over, to the console. There's just so much potential for a Sega Gemini if they ever brought that console.
I just feel like Sega's done a lot of great things in the gaming space, and I know we don't talk about them a lot. I mean, we do because we're old school Sega fans, but like not in the way that we talk about all these other companies. And I think they do have some great IP that I think they don't utilize them because I think Sega's a lot smaller than we kind of think they are, in terms of development power and internal versus external studios and how many people they employ, that kind of thing. Like I think they're smaller than we think they are. Plus, they have their hands in all kinds of other businesses, right? Like especially with the Sammy brand, and like Atlas kind of is doing their own thing, and Relic and they have their American studios or Western studios, right? But like, they really only have like Sonic Team and a couple internal studios, and I mean that's kind of it. But in terms of IP and what they've been doing as a business, I think they're doing a lot of smart things. I think they've made a lot of smart acquisitions. I think they have a lot of great franchises, and they've kind of quietly become something that we didn't think they would ever be again, in terms of like a dominant kind of we're Sega, we're here, and it's always fun to see. I still love the classic blue logo that they still use, right?
Yeah.
I love that logo. And so, man, now I have the itch to play all these kind of Sega games, even though I'm about to go play Ninja Turtles. But yeah, man, I would be excited if Sega tried to put out their own console again and tried to do this, right? I mean, we've seen companies drastically fail, right? Like Atari and Intellivision with the Amico right now is going through some crazy things. I don't know if you've been keeping up on that.
Yeah, what's been going on with that?
It's just crazy, man. They like, so they fired Tommy Tallarico because they couldn't pay him. They did another round of funding, and they burned through that. They only funded like $60,000.
Wow.
In this crowdfunding campaign that they did, and now people are asking for refunds, and they're putting them in a refund queue to wait to get their money back because they don't have the money to refund people.
Wow.
And this console was, and the console is going to cost like $350 for like a nothing console. No offense, but like it's not an Xbox or it's not even a Switch, right? It's just this little set-top box that you play, It's insane. It's bad. I thought the Atari situation was bad. Man, I still want one of those Atari boxes, even just to like open up and make like an emulation box out of it, but maybe I will someday. They're relatively cheap now. I think they're only like $100 now. They were like $300 when they came out. But anyways, yeah, I think like if Sega decided to do it, they would be the company that could do it, or at least be the most successful at it.
Yeah, I think because of their track record and their titles of games, and them being back in the black and kind of be in positive, and definitely they could make some of the movies that coincide with these video games. So you could like,
yeah, I mean, but we've seen their success with Sonic, right? Like Sonic, the Sonic movies are awesome. Like I think that first Sonic movie is a legitimately fun, like kids movie. Like a 7, 8, 9-year-old would. I think that movie is awesome. I love Sonic in that movie. The second one, from all accounts, is also very good. I think their multimedia strategy is actually a really great one to look at. Especially with Sonic, with the comic books and the cartoons and the movies, and a lot of kids just know Sonic from the movies and the comic books and the extra merchandise now. They don't even know him from the games, or like, which is crazy to me, but also I'm old, so yeah, man, I love this idea. I know they're not going to do it, but I think if anybody could re-enter the console space from classic gaming, it would be Sega, especially now.
Yeah. They're just strong. So, but that's gonna be for everybody. For goodness, what I was about to say standard definition, because it felt like that. But Nintendo Expansion Pass. Corey, where can we find you?
You can find me at I am Corey HD on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Nintendo Power Block and the Boss Rush podcast and Standard Definition and plethora of other things here on the Boss Rush Network. This was a great episode.
Yes. I really feel like a part 2 will probably come up. Like, what would be...
Yeah, I kind of, like, we touched on the games, but I really kind of want to revisit this, Ed. Maybe, like, in a week or two, and, like, each of us make, like, a list of, 4 or 5 franchises. Obviously not ones that are popular now, like Sonic or Persona, but, like, ones we haven't seen in a while, and kind of go through and imagine what kind of games they could be.
Space Harrier on this system is the Star Fox of this game.
Okay. And I gotta be up in 6 hours.
Yeah.
I don't have time to talk about Space Harrier or Star Fox anymore. No, I'm just kidding. I think this is a good idea, though. I think we should make... I really want to revisit this idea, because I think it's cool to imagine.
Yeah. That's just that you know how many... Oh, goodness, Ghost House. Let me... Sorry, Corey. You guys can find me on Twitter at ThatVentureCode and on Instagram. You can find me on Nintendo Pop Block, on Expansion Pass, other podcast apps, Talk the Walk. I don't know where I said podcast apps. Other podcasts, Talk the Walk, Optional Opinion, Word 11, and just Discord. You can find me on bossrush.net, also with the writings. With that, everybody, because it's late, and just like Corey, I have to be up early in the morning.
If this wasn't my this wasn't my 7th podcast this week, and it wasn't almost 1 o'clock in the morning, I probably would have done a 3-hour episode on this. And I think that's why a part 2 will probably end up coming.
Yes. Oh, it's gonna come, because now I have unknown games. You're speaking to the right person, Corey. You're gonna be like, oh my goodness, I forgot all about that, or I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
But with that, everybody, have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll check you next time on Nintendo Special Pass. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.